Benvinguts, bienvenidos, willkommen, welcome to our circle of conferences we start today. The circle of conferences with the title, The Construction of Europe in Times of Corona. The Goethe Institute Barcelona has created or has organized 5 conferences with different issues about these contexts. We first want to discuss about how will change coronavirus our society, and when yes, how will change it? How will it change? Then we will discuss about the question how reacts Europe in front of these terrible virus. We will discuss the role of the media in this discussion and in these problems we have. We will have a conversation about does the coronavirus influence the ecological transformation? And today we start with the first conference. We will talk about the role of culture in Europe during the times of coronavirus. And I'm very happy that we could invite to every of these conferences experts from Germany and from Spain to discuss the issues we have. I'm very pleased to moderate tonight the first conference we have, which is also part of the Biennale de Pensament. It's a festival, it is a festival, a very famous festival in Barcelona of contemporary ideas, which is taking place actually in Barcelona. Our experts today are 2 persons who are very well and very good in culture, and they are working in culture. I give a very warm welcome to Judit Carrera and to Johannes Ebert. I'm happy you are here. Judit Carrera has studied political science in Barcelona and Paris, and she works more than 20 years in the culture and in international relationships. And since 2 years, she's the director of the Contemporary Cultural Center of Barcelona, the CCCB, with whom the Goethe Institute Barcelona is working since many years, very good together. And we are happy that you are now, since 2 years, the director, and we are just closer to you every day. Johannes has studied Islamic science and politics, and he is working since 1991 for the Goethe Institute. He has been the director of different institutes and in very different parts of the world before he became in 2012 the Secretary General of the Goethe Institute. And so now he is responsible for more than 160 institutes in over 90 countries of the world. In Spain, we have 2 Goethe Institutes, one in Madrid and the next one since 65 years now in this beautiful city, Barcelona. So we are a long time, we are here. Before we start our conversation we will have tonight, I just want to ask the audience to switch off the microphones and also the video, the camera. But I will ask you also to get in the conversations with your questions in the chat. And please just before the question, give us your name and tell us for which organization or for which company you are working. And then I ask you to put a very small question because I have to read the conversation at one hand and to follow the other conversation. So it would be nice if your questions are very short. And you should start at the very first moment to put your questions, because we want to have a vivid conference right at the beginning, and not that we are talking all the time. You should participate. You can't be here, but you are there at home or in the place wherever you are, and you should participate with your questions. I just start with the first questions before you are writing yours in the chat, hopefully. Recently, I participated in a conference which organized the Mercator Foundation. And one of the invited guests was Fabrizio Rothschild, who is the Deputy United Nations Secretary General. And I asked him what he thinks about the importance of culture in his work, in the work of the United Nations. And he was convinced that it's one of the main points, and it's very important because the people get to know each other more. Maybe they understand a little bit more what other people of other parts of the world are thinking. So he gives a very high rating for culture in his work. Our president, the president of the Federal Republic of Germany, even said that culture is food. So, Judith, do you think that culture is a vaccine against coronavirus?
So thank you, Gabriele, for this invitation. It's an honor for me to be participating in a Goethe Institute event and to be exchanging with Johannes. So thank you very much for the invitation. Well, I think we're in the middle of the storm, and it's sometimes difficult to see it clearly where we are at the moment. But I think that one of the things that this crisis has confirmed is that humans are not only bodies to be preserved and to be saved, no, and in terms of health. Not only, that society is not only kind of only flows of economies of different kinds, but that the fact of living together is a very, it's kind of the essence of our lives in Earth. And I think that this crisis has kind of attacked this idea of living together, no, and directly, no, and that we are not. And that culture at the end of the day has this function of giving meaning to what it means to live together. No, so I think that if we have to talk about the culture in the midst of this coronavirus crisis, it's to not only to save a cultural sector or a cultural economy, but only to understand that culture is basically the tool that we have to understand what it means to be living together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I had this afternoon, I had an interview with a philosophical magazine, and they started the question that Süddeutsche Zeitung wrote in an article that culture is not so important in these times. And I asked myself why. And but of course it's not a good question for Judith and me, because of course we are totally convinced that culture is really important, and that it is even more important in the time of Corona crisis. Why? Adding to what Judith said, I think Corona crisis creates a really huge insecurity in the societies, and culture creates a space or formats or possibilities to reflect these insecurities and to think about these insecurities, and also to think about what keeps our societies together. So beside all factual things like vaccines, like testing, like opening shops, like masks, I think the deep task of culture is to reflect on how we live together in this time of a crisis which affects our usual ways of communicating, of experimenting, and of thinking. So I think culture is even more important in Corona times, which is not surprising, but I have my reasons for that, which I gave here, is even more important than before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But
I saw Judith, I saw the things that you do in your center. I think I saw Timothy Snyder and Caroline Emke, and I think all these people are reflecting on these things that keeps society together and creates. So I think it's very important. Yeah.
Well, and I would like to add to this question, taking this insecurity thread that you're mentioning. I think that the fear of the future. No, I think that there was already a fear of the future, and that I think that this crisis has increased this fear. Yes. And I think that the culture, in all its diversity of languages and disciplines, has the potentiality of exploring new possible futures, and it has this freedom to invent a future, and I think this is more needed than ever.
But I think we also have a big responsibility in this, because what I was thinking about, so many things have changed, and we have learned a lot, or we are still learning a lot of things in the course of the crisis. And I always ask myself, do we find a place or a certain time when we reflect about what have we learned and how will it go on? What will we take from it? And what do we say, this did not work really well? Or will it be, if there's a vaccine or something, just like before, like everybody will go on like before? Or do we as cultural people create a space to think about what we have learned and what we want to take to the next step of our societies, and what do we say, this we don't want, we had it in Corona, but we don't want it anymore. So it's not only this possibility of creating a future, but also a responsibility of doing this.
But what do you think did we learn till now about Corona, how we worked, how does work change now?
I mean, there's so much to you. Did you start?
Sorry, I didn't listen well to the.
My question is, because Johannes said, do we have time to think about what we learned? And I asked, what did we learn till now about Corona? How does our work change, our work in our daily work, our future work?
Well, I think there are two levels of reflection on this. I think, and there is more one in a more general approach. I would say that we've learned that we didn't listen to scientific, approaches enough. I think that if we had listened better, there were alerts from the scientific domain that they were telling us that a pandemic would come. They've been telling us that our way of living the planet was creating some imbalances in our links to other other species in the earth. And I think that this is the first crisis directly or indirectly linked to the climate emergency that we're living in Europe in first person. No, so that I think that's kind of the first crisis that it's an alert, I think, from the earth that is telling us that stop living that way. And I think that culture has the power or the responsibility, as Johannes was saying, to promote new ways of thinking and living in this planet. And I think it's not only, we know that this is the first of a series of crises that will be happening more and more. There was a report from the UN recently saying that 3 out of 5 cities in the world have already now the risk of suffering a natural disaster. Can it be a heat wave, a storm, or a fire like in California or Australia? And I think that this, we cannot isolate culture, the work of the creators, out of what is really happening in our planet. And I think that has to do a lot with the links of the humanistic disciplines to science. So this idea of the culture as a space for mixing and bringing people from different disciplines together I think it's more important than ever. And that would be the kind of the general reflection. And then how this has been translated, I mean, the particular crisis into our daily life, I think it has completely changed the way of creating and doing culture in different parts of the world. But the basic is that, this idea of culture as being a space for meeting other people to, physical encounter are completely affected by the crisis. And of course, the international exchanges are for me, the 2 pillars you know, any kind of cultural, not only event, but project has to do with how do you mix people from different disciplines, and how do you promote an international exchange are completely affected. But I think we can, it's our obligation is to reinvent our way of working, and imagine other possible ways of keeping our essence with other means, no? And I think that's the basic responsibility that we have right now.
So,
I want to add what the crisis also on two levels. The one is the personal working level. Yeah. Actually, at first, I was quite happy about all these possibilities to communicate digitally. And I already said when we talked a little bit before, of course, I would not have been able to come to Barcelona today and discuss with Judit, but now, and with you, Gabi, but now this is a possibility, but still something is lacking. Yeah, still the feeling of sitting around one table and seeing the reactions, having a glass of wine, and I think this is very profane, but I think it makes a much deeper conversation possible. And after 6 months of the crisis, I really feel how I miss this kind of really deep encounters on a personal level. And I think, as you said, Judith, we have to think, how do we create this possibility of meeting? How do we change the format? You in our talk before, you said maybe people should come longer to one place and stay there and do some kind of residencies. I think this is an idea that we should follow, because I think we need these personal encounters. On the other hand, personal encounter means flying with a plane, talking about sustainability and ecology. Yeah. So how do we find hybrid and mixed formats that we can do our task of inventing the future, or the responsibility of going on? The second thing, what we learned on a more general level, is how vulnerable the cultural sector is. I think this is in all our countries in Europe, and some governments made good helping programs, but we see it even more. And Gabi, you mentioned it. We are working in a global organization. We see it even more in countries where especially the free scene and civil society cultural actors were already under pressure, that they are now even more affected by this crisis. And I think it's also our task to help in these cases and to continue with working with them. We actually even created with the Foreign Ministry and some foundations a rescue fund to support cultural society actors in culture and education. So I think that's what we have learned. The other thing is, for Europe, that the national borders have become stronger or again, yeah, which is maybe not only ideology, but maybe it's also connected to the fact that the health systems are national, that the control systems are national, that all security things we have are national. And I think there's another responsibility for culture to create a European public, which makes us able to understand European cooperation as a means of creating a future. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think, so there are a lot of tasks for us that we have to do together.
We have a first question from the audience. I'm very happy. It's a question from Patrick Heinz, who is the director of the cultural department of the General Consulate here in Barcelona. He asked, do we need a new toolbox with instruments for cultural work, and how would we get there? Judith, what do you think? Do we need a new toolbox?
Well, I think we were already responding to that question, this idea of finding new ways and new tools to continue to do the cultural work. And I think it's very difficult to say that there is a huge opportunity out of this crisis, which is a very topic thing to say. But at the same time, we think that, you know, the new context allows us to invest more time and resources to kind of the research kind of work, that this more in-depth work, less hectic, let's say, of production and activity, and invest more, as Johannes was saying, to this vulnerable sector, and do more long-term projects and try to promote this reflection of in a more long-term and less less exhibition and production, and more into the creation work. I think that's important. And I also agree that it is essential not to lose this international approach and this European cooperation. I think that the risk is that we get closed up into our local environment, and which is very important, and we really have to take care of that. And then I think it's very important to give support to the local cultural ecosystem. But at the same time, I think this is a global challenge, and this is we have to acknowledge that this is a shared challenge that we have. And that we really need to think and to act together in this new context, and we have to find new ways of promoting this international cooperation through new formats, and have to invent new ways of thinking and new ways of living, and new ways of provoking this international exchange. And there are many already under work, and I think it's not only impossible, but it's very feasible.
I would also answer in two respects, because toolbox is a very technical thing. Yeah. So and it concerns more, and Judit, you said it concerns formats, it concerns instruments. Like now we are talking on Zoom, but Zoom is an instrument for business sessions. Yeah. Do we need another? And this would be a part of a toolbox. Do we also need new technical instruments? But before thinking about new tools and a new toolbox, and I definitely think we have to think about that. I would ask the questions: are our principle of the cultural cooperation, how we see it, and how institutions like yours see it, international exchange, like creating projects together, doing co-productions, doing promoting an open society which is not differing, which is not closed to diversity and things like that. I think it's very important to stress that these principles stay as they have been before. Yeah, because sometimes they're a toolbox and then we do everything differently. I think the principles of cultural exchange stay, and they are even more important, or Corona has stressed them, that they are so important by, for example, putting national borders up very fast. This means for cultural exchange, we really have to continue in our international work. We really have to stress that international cooperation is necessary if we really want to deal with the big topics like ecology, like migration, like sustainability, and so on. But I think there's a danger of just going on, as I said, when the crisis is going down and not learning from it. And I think the important question is, some of our tools that we have are still very good and very active, but we have to re-examine them and revisit them and restructure them. I was thinking about the role of a cultural institute these days. And when I started at Goethe Institute, we always said the Goethe Institute is a window to Germany and to Germany. Yeah. In the last years, we didn't say that because everybody was traveling so much. There was so much exchange. You didn't need a window of Germany in Spain because there was already so much going on. But now, as we cannot travel, is the role of an institute like ours changing again to being a window to Germany, and outside of Europe of being together with the others a window to Europe? Yeah. So these are things I'm thinking about when I hear toolbox. And And I think it would be interesting in January, February, March to sit together with different cultural institutes and think about what have we learned, how do we change the format, how do we do a sustainable cultural exchange which allows personal encounters but still has a hybrid form which reflects a higher responsibility for our environment. So I think these are big questions, and I think there we have learned a lot to redefine some of our tools.
When I listen to you both, it's like Corona is a chance, or we are lucky that there is the Corona crisis, because it gives the chance to rethink a lot of things we are doing now and which we did since years, to change also our thinking, our manners, our work, our progress. So you see it as a chance too, Corona?
Well, no, I don't think it's an opportunity. We cannot say we're lucky to have this crisis, because it's a terrible crisis, not only for the cultural sector. It's a terrible economic and social crisis, and already here. So I think it's a huge and terrible earthquake in our society. So I don't think we can say from the cultural sector that we're lucky to have it here. But I think that this crisis has kind of insisted in some transformations that were already underway, and that, you know, that culture was already rethinking itself, you know, because society had, you know, has been changing a lot in the past few years. The technological transformation has been huge and has completely transformed our way of accessing to knowledge and accessing to museums, and our connections with culture have completely changed because of all these social and technological transformations in our respective contexts. And I think that this crisis comes at a time where we were already rethinking the ways of, you know, creating a more horizontal culture, a more opening up museums, and opening up, you know, more accessibility policies into the museums, and, you know, and so that it comes at a moment where we were already rethinking ourselves, and I think what I think we're both saying is that we're not lucky to have this crisis, but since we're here, we have to accept what we're having and trying to reinvent ourselves to continue to do our job and to keep the centrality of culture as much as we can.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree, because actually we as the Goethe-Institut, through our language courses, we lost a lot of money and got government support for it. Yeah, so it's a really threatening situation. And we know from our partners, especially on the free cultural scene, how difficult it is. Talking only about culture, talk about tourism and other branches of economy, it's terrible. But on the other hand, we are professionals, and if you are responsible for organization, you have to make the best of it. Mm-hmm. And that's what we are trying to do. And you have to see things as a chance to move things in a good way further. And I think that's our task. And that's also a field and a chance of culture itself, that it's able to change, and that it's able to reflect and react to changes in society very fast, because artists are very sensitive, and they are very deep into these processes to reflect on them and to give something back to society in reflecting them. And I think, and I think that's another reason why culture is so important. So I think we have to, like from every situation in life, you have to make the best of it, and that's what we are trying to do. Mm-hmm. And I think that's our task. Yeah.
Johannes, you recently participated in a panel in Brussels with European politicians, and as I understood, they asked you, what does you expect, or what do we expect? Also, we here, what do we expect from the EU in the field of culture and education? What does the Goethe-Institut especially expect? from
I mean, this was an interesting discussion, and Judith, you said it in the beginning. We talked a lot, and I think that's very important for us about the values, about the underlying principle of cultural exchange and of cultural work. For the EU, and you said it, of course, and also for us, culture is also a very big economic branch, yeah, with 7.5 million employees, with a turnover of 500 billion euro. I hope the number is right. But it's really a big part of our economy. And when we talk to our colleagues from the European Union, we always talk about both. We think that cultural and creative industries are very important to create conditions for cultural, for artists and so on, to work. But culture in itself is a I don't want to say instrument, but helps us for social diversity, social opening, for cohesion of societies. So I think this is a double understanding that we have in about culture when we talk about it in the instrument of the European Union. What the European Union can do, and what we expect from them, and I think they are doing their best to do that, because right now they are discussing the multi-annual framework of the EU budgeting, and we know that the Parliament is very in favor of strengthening the cultural sector and Erasmus Plus and Creative Europe, and so that's what we are hoping that they will succeed in, and not because we want to get more money as institutions, but because, as in the beginning of the discussion, we said why culture is so important for Europe. What the EU in programs can do, and this is, because culture is a national privilege, they can do a lot about mobility and about bringing experiences of European sectors and actors together. And I think that's what we ask from them, that they allow us and they strengthen all possibilities of mobility, of coming together, of we're doing a small consortium with the Ukrainian organization and the French and the Institut Français. It's called iPortunus, where we, in the pilot project, give money for traveling to artists within Europe. They give a project, and then we give them a small amount of money, and this is something that we should ask from the European Union, that they help us, or that they support all measures of bringing European experiences together and supporting European mobility of young people and of artists. I think this is important. Although, of course, now it's difficult because the traveling is not as easy as before. But I think within Europe, it will be possible to support this mobility also in the next month and years. And I think this would be important.
Mm-hmm. Judith, if you could give suggestions to the European politics, what would you suggest?
Well, I totally agree with what Johannes just said, and I really think that there are a lot of existing European networks of formal or informal European networks of culture that are in a way sustaining the political project. No, I always think that that when we do a project that is a co-production, for instance, of an exhibition that we share with 5 or 6 other European cities or countries, we are creating a solidarity or a friendship that is strong, and that is, you work together for 3 or 4 years, and that stays. And I think is a parallelism with what Erasmus was meant to do at that time. No, it's like to create European bonds at the student level. No, and I think that already exists. I think we all belong to other to European networks, and I think that for me, if I had to ask or suggest one one action I would like to get more support for these already existing, but to new existing European networks that would help, to create this solidarity bonds. I always explain that, with the Brexit situation, we, our colleagues from Britain were kind of, very sad to have to leave Europe, because that would exclude them from many projects. And I always tell them, that the network is already here. It's we know them. We have worked together for many years, and we want to work with them again. So I think that creates a bond that it's kind of very strong, and that can help in this Europe of uncertainty and fear of the future, and such a the rise of extreme right in many different countries. I think that these European networks of culture are really important, and I think that help us to learn from each other and to exchange, even if we cannot move around that much now, which I think it will improve increasingly in the forthcoming months. So I think even now we will have new ways of dealing with the virus that will allow us to resume public life increasingly. This is my hope, at least. But I would ask to kind of promote the existing and create new European networks of culture.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is also important to create a European public, to create the feeling for European individuals that there's an added value that we get from European cooperation, because I think this is very important, that we make Europe, that Europe can be felt and experienced not only in TV and so on, but also emotionally and in artist cooperation. And I think this is very important. There's a task for us also to do that, because if not, as Judith said, and as it was said before, the national feelings in the crisis are very strong. Yeah, and I think I think we both have a European approach and a European outlook, which has to be strengthened. And I think the European Union can help in projects like this.
I think just to add to this point, I think that culture has the mission of being a bridge, and a bridge between countries, between cultures, between disciplines, between young people and old people, with different kinds of it's the mission of creating a community, and it can be a European community, it could be a local community, it can be a national community, but I think that this idea of culture being a bridge, and being an open window in a world that it's only closing down, and it's closing. I think the culture has this mission of opening up, and so it's really a political struggle. It's not something that it's only for the artist.
Not a luxury. It's necessary, completely necessary. Yeah.
A political struggle in the world that the corona has still closed more and more. That so we need to create programs that open up perspectives, that open up possibilities. So that to avoid also that fear is the only dominant feature of the European scene, and because we know from historical experience that fear is kind of the main element of an authoritarian society.
Absolutely.
So we really, I think culture has this political mission too. It's to avoid that fear is the only dominant feature of our society.
Yeah. The problem of you two is that you understand each other so well. I hope that you will fight against each other, but it's fantastic what you're doing. We have another question.
As I said, you should have invited this article, the writer of the article who said culture is not so important in Corona.
Cool.
I think then we would have a nice controversial discussion. Yeah.
Right. Patrick Heinz from the German consulate put another question. COVID and digitalization have changed our field of operation in dramatic speed. What are your plans, Johannes, to speed up change and reinventing the Goethe Institute?
Actually, we were very well prepared for this digital phase. Yeah, also in comparison to other German organizations. Because we started with digitalization in '95. In 2013, we had our first digital strategy. And in 2018, we did a profound, how do you say, a profound examination of our, it's in German, digitale Reifegrad, digital ripeness. So that's what it was called. And from this process, we deducted a lot of measures for the Goethe Institute, and we got money from the Bundestag to invest in digitalization. So actually we were quite well off to tackle the situation in the beginning of the crisis. Last year we transferred our office to within Munich and introduced the concept of new work. With open space places, offices. Actually, I'm sitting. Before I had a very big office place, and now I'm sitting with 16 people on 13 desks, which I really much enjoy. It's very communicative. Now nobody's there because everybody's in home office, but in principle, so we were not so badly prepared. And actually, we could go, our central office could go to the home office without any loss of effectiveness. So I would not say that we have to reinvent the Goethe Institute digitally, but that we have to continue certain things that we already were very much thinking about it. Judith, you said on how many, that digitalization was even before the crisis a process that every cultural institution was dealing with. What happened in Corona, everything was very fast, suddenly. We introduced Teams in 2 months, which normally would have taken 2 years. We introduced Zoom in 4 months, partly because of security reasons, which would maybe not be the place at all. Our online courses that we had before, and I know that some of my colleagues, although we as the CEOs always said, please introduce also online language courses. They said, no, our clientele wants to sit in a classroom. And we said, please try it out, because there will be a day when we need these online courses. And part of them did, and it works very well. But we also had to train 3,000 teachers in 1 month to spread out the online courses all over the place. We created very fast, interesting digital programs like Kulturama, a platform where everybody in Europe or all over the world who did some streaming of events could put it, and it was very well frequented in the high time of the crisis. We put an interesting project, Danach Gedanken. We made a big hackathon in Kiev. And so I think of course, we still have a lot to do, but we were already on the track to install a very strong digital part of our work. And now I tell my colleagues, it's not about, it's about education and language courses. I tell them, so before we had 250,000 participants worldwide. Now it would be possible to have 500,000, because 250,000 in the classroom and 250,000 in places that we reach digitally. So, but I have to admit that we have to continue this process. And I think it would, as I said already before, it would be interesting to come together in the beginning of next year with cultural organizations, and programs like this happen, of course. What does the digital mean for culture? Where do we work digitally, and where do we have to work in a physical way? Because what I feel and what I hear from my colleagues worldwide, that people are longing to meet physically. Mm-hmm. And I'm very happy. In March, we had only one institute open in Taipei. And now about half of our institutes are open. You can go there, you can meet. You are protected in certain countries in the institute. So I think there are a lot of chances in the digital, but the physical gets even more important in these times. Mm. I was a little bit long, I'm sorry, but it's a big topic.
I just want to add that we've in the 14th of March, they decided to the lockdown here in Spain. And the next day we switched from classes here, we switched to online courses and it worked. So that's just can underline what Johannes said. Judith, do you have to reinvent you or to upchange the CCCV?
Well, as we have been saying, I think that we were all under this digital transformation already, and I think that is, you know, as I said, all cultural organizations, or many cultural organizations, were already rethinking themselves and their function in because of the digital transformation, and it, you know, this crisis has deepen this need and accelerated this process, which has been fantastic in many different ways and has, you know, confirmed the centrality of the digital tools for our work. And I think at the same time, you know, for me, the experience of these past 6 months is that the digital has demonstrated the potentialities of the digital, of the technologies, or I mean, what, you know, the new ways we can use technology for the creative work, but also the limitations. I think, you know, it's fantastic that we can do this Zoom here, and that we, you know, we can exchange and meet with Johannes, that maybe, you know, in a kind of normal situation, you know, our busy agendas and hectic activities would, you know, have made this more difficult, but at the same time, we all agree that this is not what we would like, the best way we would like to meet, and that we would like to, you know, to have a physical, face-to-face encounter in Barcelona or Munich or Berlin, you know, meeting real people and, you know, having this, and I think that for me, the crisis has confirmed that the digital, the wall through the digital is smaller, and it's smaller, and it's limited, and I think that it has, you know, reinforced the importance of the face-to-face meetings for the cultural sector. And I think we really cannot renounce to this role, because I think it talking about this kind of public role of culture, if we remain closed in our small digital, you know, comfortable kind of bubbles, we renounce to this effect of emotion of the unexpected encounters, the surprise, you know, the improvisation that all a cultural event or cultural project always allows. So I think you know, we have to work in these two apparently you know, contradictory paths, which is like developing the digital transformation and the digital with a critical eye, no, using technology as a tool and not as a final aim, and at the same time, you know, insisting that, you know, real culture takes place in real places.
Judith, I was asked by this interview this afternoon exactly about this, not only about the question of personal conversation, but what do we lose in art when it's digitally? Mm-hmm. Can you describe that? Because I was looking for words in this interview, and now as I see, you have William Kentridge, you have a lot of exhibition and so on. What is a physical exhibition or a physical theater piece creating? How would you describe that to help me in my next interview? What is missing if you don't have it?
Well, this is a very important question, and I think you know, it has many different possible answers. But from our experience, I would say that in the digital, you lose the complexity of the communication exchange. You know, it's like a more unidirectional, and you know, it doesn't allow this unexpectedness of the face-to-face encounter, and there is I think increasingly the role of emotion in art is increasingly important, because you know, with this technological transformation, we have the access to knowledge, or to information at least, is already in our technological devices, you know, in our cell phones. So people expect other things from museums, from a play, or from going to the cinema. You know, you expect something that is special, that is unique, that is experimental, that it's immersive, no, that it's live, and that it's not mediated through a screen, so that it's real physical encounter. And I think in that sense, I always like to think about culture as a public space, as a you know, as a public sphere in the German kind of traditional way of thinking. A public sphere, a space where people that don't know each other can meet and can get the awareness that they belong to a larger community, so that you go out from your private house, and you know, and that's the same role that a physical urban public space has in a city, you know, where you know, a public market, a public square, a train station, you know, that this idea that you belong to a shared space where you you know, you share your space with people that you don't know, and that can, you know, this anonymity and this unexpectedness of living in the city. And I think Europe has this identity, no, of having cities that are places for meeting with strangers, no. And I think culture, in its own way, has this role too. And I would say that this is something that the digital screen doesn't allow to happen.
We should have had this discussion before my interview. I would have had a much better. Oh, okay, my answer was not so bad and similar, but I liked it very much.
Next time we'll
yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
I would like to know, but I'm a little bit afraid. In the last years, I see that in Europe there's a very strong movement to the right in politics. And do we think that our cultural work does reach people to change something, or do always come the same people to our events, to our projects that we do, and these people who are always at the same side as we are? What do we think? What is your opinion?
So difficult, Judit can start.
Please, no,
diplomatic.
No, of course. Actually, I said already, after this Brexit decision of the British public, we had a meeting of our regional directors and together with us, and we were thinking, what do we do now? Because this was the last symptom of something that was going on already since several years before. Fueled also by the economy crisis and so on, and by politicians who like to take the advantages of the EU, but at home make the EU a scapegoat for many things. So, and of course, culture has to play a role in this field. So we were thinking about what can we do, and I think we did not stop thinking until now. I think there's not an easy answer where you say, okay, now we do this and that, and then it will work out, because the whole phenomenon is very complex and is rooted in identity politics, is rooted in politics of remembrance and so on, is also rooted in the question of social justice and the distribution of wealth. But I think it's even more an identity question and a certain fear of the unknown, yeah, that is there. So we created, as cultural institutions do, we created different projects and hope that if other cultural institutions also create similar projects, then there's a certain network of cultural signals will emanate, which brings in a lot of people who are skeptical of the EU, skeptical of migration into a country, skeptical of their governments. Yeah, there's big mistrust in governments, which is quite dangerous. So some projects we did. There's one project. It's called Freiraum, where we're working with 50 or with 60 civil society organizations in Europe about the question of freedom. We did this for 3 years, and of course it's completely different organizations who also work sometimes with communities who are closed and whom they bring in for this more open exchange. In Poland and Hungary, for example, we said, okay, the skepticism about an open society is not in the capitals, not in Warsaw or Budapest, but it's in middle-sized cities. And we started to do projects, cultural projects there, just as a sign of an open society. There's a completely different project where we said we need to do more for. It's not a cultural project. It's more a project on youth employment, StartNet, how to bring in young people who are disappointed of their life, how to help them get jobs, how to help them after school to connect with employment. So we did a lot of course, we did exhibitions in Eastern Europe on the question, are you afraid of the unknown? Yeah, to tackle the question in an artistic exhibition, what does the unknown of which many Europeans and Germans were afraid at the time when there are a lot of refugees were arriving, how do we deal with the unknown? Why is it threatening? Why yeah, so we did single projects like these, but I think it's a big work, and maybe I can only judge it from my level as the head of a big institution. Maybe Judit, you can answer it more because you are more on the ground and working with communities. So, but that's our approach, that we really want to tackle the question, and I think we can reach a lot of people who are skeptical, but I think there's a group of people whom you cannot reach, who are radical, whom you really have to show you don't accept this kind of positioning. Yeah.
Well, I think that this is one of the key questions we have to answer, and as I said before, and I think Johannes also mentioned it. I think you were talking about the unknown, the fear to the unknown. I think this idea of the fear of the future. No, it's not new. It's not because of the corona. No, it's something that goes back to 2008 and the huge financial crisis that was monumental in many countries, including Spain. And I think that also this fear of the future has to do with many deep social changes that are underway. I think that scientific and technological changes are transforming our role in this life. And I'm thinking about artificial intelligence, that robotics, all these fantastic scientific and technological progresses also create a lot of fear. We talk about robots and the future of work, for instance. No, it creates a lot of fascination, but also a lot of many different fears about what will be the jobs of our children and our grandchildren, for instance. No, also other aspects that I think generate a lot of fear is that the transformation of former pillars of our society, such as family, religion, gender. No, there are so many different changes that are completely being transformed and questioned and challenged in many different ways, and that I think that society has changed in so many, it has been a deep social transformation that also has this dark side that creates a lot of fear, and that's kind of the seed for authority, extreme right, and sorry.
No, I had know it.
In many different parts of the world, and we're talking about Europe, but we could talk about the United States or Brazil or the UK or India, no? Where this fear of the future. So I think in this new context, no, I think culture has also to strengthen its social role and accepting that this is the context in which we're living. And I think that one of the ways is to work closer with the educational system in a very large chain, and to understand that education and culture are working, with the same aim, which is basically this building of this open society of building, young people and creating a critical society that can face the big challenges that we have right now. So one way for me is to work more closely with the educational system, not only with schools, like the traditional visit of the school into the exhibition, but working hand in hand and reinventing the way of learning, reinventing the way of using technology, thinking together and working hand in hand, and understanding that the social and economic crises that are key in our societies right now, culture has to try to cure and take care of these social fractures that are being underway. And I think we cannot become the elitist kind of cultural sector that satisfies a small portion of our society, but we have to have this aspiration of universality and accessibility to as many different publics as possible. And I think there are a lot of amazing initiatives in many different countries in Europe that are being underway and tested and working to create a more inclusive society, a society that is not fearful for the future. And I think that's again the political and social role that we have also, our portion to contribute to another society.
So I see there's no more question from the audience. I just would like to encourage you again to put your question.
It'd be really nice to see their faces.
Okay, if there are no more questions, I would like to ask you to make a short final statement about our role of culture in Europe in times of crisis and without crisis. Judith.
Well, I think we have, discussed many different things, and I think again that we agree a lot with Johannes. But I would like, since this is an international exchange and conversation, I would like to stress the importance of keeping these bridges alive and try to reinforce and reinvent new ways of working together across cultures and across countries. And I think the Goethe Institute in that sense is a fantastic example of the kind of networks, international networks that we really need in this particular context. So just to, I would just like to end with this remark.
And I want to thank you for the discussion, because although we have a very similar outlook on things, there were some things like what you said about the meaning of the artistic experience for the spectator or for the visitor that really enriched me and very important for me. And I think we are very serious that art and culture and education, I think the point that you made in the end about connecting the art sector, the culture sector with the education sector, I think this was a very important statement and a very important opportunity. where we also think about bringing our international experience more into the German system, because German society gets more and more diverse, and we from our international work bring some experience that maybe organizations who work in the cultural education can need or can use very well. So I think we talked about the important the meaning of culture in Corona before, and I think the challenge is now to find a moment or a period of time where we really think about what have we learned and how will we go on, and maybe we will discuss this when I'm next time in Barcelona really traveling. that would be really great. Thank you very much.
Oh, fantastic.
I would like to thank you, Judith, and you, Johannes, for participating in this first conference in our cycle. I would like to thank the audience, even if you are very, very close up. But I think you listened very well to what was happening tonight. And I would like to say that the next conference will be on the 27th of October. And will be the question about how the European Union has reacted till now. And we have Ulrike Guerreau as a German guest and Jochen Müller. And we have Carmen Colominas como moderator. Thank you so well. Keep well, keep sane, and we see us again physically, I hope. Good night. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bye.